Final project, The Art of Influence. Nazi visual propaganda and the construction of power. Introduction. Adolf Hitler's rise to power cannot be explained by political scheming, unstable economies, or Germany's post-World War I problems alone. A methodical, well-curated propaganda apparatus intended to manipulate the public's perception of themselves, their country, and their adversaries was essential to his rise. This essay looks at how the Nazi regime shaped public opinion through the use of persuasive discourse, large-scale demonstrations, and visual representations. By examining Proctor, Robert, The Destruction of Lives Not Worth Living, and the iconography of Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will, I contend that Hitler gained power through a strategic persuasion that made his leadership seem inevitable, heroic, and even desirable. Historical context. Following its defeat in World War I, Germany suffered from political disintegration, economic collapse, and general humiliation as a result of the Treaty of Versailles. Extremist movements that advocated for unification and restoration found favor in these circumstances. Hitler understood early on that public opinion, not just military prowess, determined power. When Hitler was appointed chancellor in 1933, the Nazis had already established a powerful public presence through mass media. Hitler's propagandist Joseph Goebbels transformed political messaging by fusing contemporary advertising strategies with poignant narratives. This was deliberate rather than coincidental. The propaganda apparatus dominated public ceremonies, radio, movies, posters, and newspapers. Nazi propaganda, carefully constructed and tailored to persuade, provided unambiguous answers to a nation in quest of stability, strength, and hope. Analysis of the first sequence. Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will. A scene from the 1935 film Triumph of the Will, which was shot in a Nuremberg rally, serves as the first visual example. Hitler is seen in the opening scene, starting at minute 132 to minute 4, flying down from the sky in an airplane, filmed from above as though he were a god, coming down to save the country. Awe and veneration are invoked by the camera's slow, deliberate movement and the triumphant music. The perception that Hitler already enjoys popular adoration is reinforced by crowds that stretch indefinitely into the distance. Following the plane landing at minute 4, he is greeted with content and happiness as everyone is saluting him in the crowds and smiling. Hundreds of thousands of residents are organized in precise geometric forms to show togetherness, discipline, and unwavering commitment to this painstakingly staged performance. In this part of the film, around minute 450, the use of filming the crowd is shown a lot to portray clearly that everyone loves Hitler and is happily there to support him. The audience is convinced by this visual language that Hitler is their messianic leader accepted by the German people rather than a political figure facing resistance. By portraying Nazi authority as organic, unstoppable, and natural, the movie transforms philosophy into a spectacle. By turning a political rally into a myth-making event and employing cinematic tactics to convince viewers that Hitler is Germany's destiny, Triumph of the Will serves as propaganda. Analysis of second sequence. Triumph of the Will at 1 hour and 1 minute to 1 hour and 6 minutes and 40 seconds. In this 5 minutes and 40-second sequence of the film, it is a very powerful message being shown. At the beginning of this sequence, Hitler along with 2 of his comrades are shown walking down a long walkway surrounded on either side by thousands of German soldiers. This is a very powerful scene as it almost forces you to fear not joining him because of his immense power and support that he has already. They are playing music during this massive ceremony. As the scene goes on, the soldiers start marching in a pattern that shows the unification and support for the Nazi Party. At hour 102 and 35 seconds, the 3 Nazi leaders, with Hitler standing out a step in front, are saluting the metal statue of the Nazi symbol. The fact that Hitler and his 2 comrades are standing out alone with everyone shouting in unison around them is a very powerful and emotional scene. Together, in the 2 scenes, Hitler used the power of the people and emotive narrative rather than democratic persuasion to gain power. He was portrayed in the Triumph of the Will's rally scenes as a valiant rescuer who was supported by the general public. And in the beginning of the film, he is shown as beloved and supported by all the common people that lived in the town. These 2 types of propaganda complemented one another. They both offered a spectacle in different ways, that both scenes showing mass amounts of support from two different groups, the common people and the Nazi soldiers. Both persuaded common people that Hitler's leadership was noble, essential, and natural. These scenes demonstrate how convincing people to adopt extremes was essential to Hitler's rise to power. Fear, pride, and a sense of belonging were all sculptured by his propaganda machine until his authority began to feel more like a communal identity than an ideology. He was able to influence Germans' worldview and consequently their behavior inside it. Also, using Proctor, Robert, The Destruction of the Lives Not Worth Living, I learned that Hitler's plan for a long time was to cleanse his race. A quote from this source states that, according to the post-war testimony of Hitler's personal physician, Karl Brandt, Hitler decided, even before 1933, that he would one day try to eliminate the mentally ill. In fact, shortly after the rise of Nazis. This shows just how much he was planning to rise to power and how he was set on his ideals even before the Nazi Party came to power. In conclusion, Hitler's ascent to power serves as an example of the perilous ways propaganda may influence political reality. The Nazi regime developed a convincing narrative that portrayed Hitler as Germany's savior and opponents as existential threats through radio, movies, posters, and public rituals. These visual techniques strengthened his power rather than just bolstered it. Hitler realized that manipulating perceptions equated to manipulating beliefs, and manipulating beliefs equated to manipulating society. Riefenstahl's methods are still very much in use today, serving as a reminder that political influence frequently stems from emotion rather than logic. This analysis demonstrates how propaganda that portrayed authoritarianism as desirable and unavoidable gave rise to Hitler's authority. It is essential to comprehend these tactics not merely for historical research, but also as a cautionary tale about how persuasion may influence democracy, identity, and society.